Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you're joining us today in today's live lecture, coming to you from Nkolo Mahadum Wisdom University. Today's date is Nkwo Market Day in the Igbo lunar calendar and 11/4/25 in the Roman Catholic calendar. Remember, at Nkolo Mahadum Wisdom University, we encourage you to always use your naturally given common sense, which we call Akonuche in Igbo language. And we package our lectures from the Igbo man, the Biafran, and African perspectives. And we are primarily set up to decolonize your mind, to tell you whom the colonizers are and how you should survive in this tumultuous world. And we encourage you to always join us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. Now we are live on YouTube and Facebook because of the interview, because of the analysis we shall be making with our analyst. We have a special analyst today by name Kenny Inugo. And the title of our lecture today is The Fulanis in Nigeria, Their Origin, Their Conquest, and Domination. How did the Fulanis come to Nigeria? Where did they come from? How did they conquer the Hausa land and trying to conquer the whole Nigeria now through their domination? That will be answered by our special guest, Mr. Kenny Inugo, who is a public analyst specializing in media psychology and public policy. Kenny is a well-experienced media analyst specializing in media psychology and public policy. Today, he'll be giving us a lot of information concerning how the Fulanis came to Nigeria, how they conquered, and how they continue to dominate. And having said that, we shall encourage you to please like, comment, and share this lecture to your friends and well-wishers. And with this, I will be bringing in Mr. Kenny Inugo into the program. Thank you very much, Mr. Kenny, for joining us today. Mr. Kenny Inugo, who is a very important, well-experienced public analyst specializing in media psychology and public policy. Kenny, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you, viewers, listeners, being a part of this show. As has been said by Dr. Ba, you will be taught and you get a lot by watching this program or listening to the program, and then you go and do your own research, make a counter evaluation of our analysis and see where Nigeria has been, where Nigeria is, and where Nigeria is going, especially as it pertains to the Fulanis of Nigeria.
Thank you. You know that the title of our lecture today, what we are discussing today, the insight you will provide to us today, to our listeners, today is the Fulanis in Nigeria, their origin, their conquest and domination. So, Mr. Kenny Inugo, where does the Fulanis actually originated from? How did they find their way into Nigeria?
Record and history has it that the Fulanis were originally from the Middle East, somewhere around Egypt. For those of you who had West African history, you know there was a man called Mansa Musa who was a typical full-fledged West African. And during the time he reigned, he had traveled to the Middle East, and he was highly recognized. Coming back, he came back with some of these fullers. They originally, some people call them fullers or fullbase. So the Fulani came into West Africa through the association with Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa of the then Mali, a very well notorious, very highly respected empire of the days, conquering empire, or just most like the Caesars and Alexander the Greats of the time in Europe. So when the Fulani came down here, they settled mainly around the Futajalon Mountain, to the southwest of Sahara Desert. In those days, those areas were green. That was a powerfully established area for agriculture. You know that Africa had lived on agriculture in those days. So when they settled in there, the Fulanese, they started to multiply, being part of what was going on, and more and more of the Fulani were coming in to West Africa. And when they got in and settled in, they started spreading their religion. At that time, their religion, Islam, was foreign to this West African area. And they continued to do that with politics, with trade. They were the major slave traders of the days. They were what in the south, particularly where I come from, they call Ndento. Those who come as kidnappers. That's what they were. That was their first business in West Africa. Kidnapping people and selling to the white man in Gold Coast, which is current Ghana, and then Brass, which is current Nigeria, and so many other people.
Which means kidnapping indigenous people and
indigenous,
selling them to the white people.
They were not indigenous. They were just slave traders. They were traders, but they were trading on human beings that they kidnapped.
Wow.
So that was their primary doing. Then added with a little bit of trade here and spices, gold, and stuff like that. Anyway, as this continued, they settled in. Due to the kidnapping and all and the wars they were embarking on, they were able to establish political power. And then from there, their religious power was also used. And when they found that people are not accepting their religion, they declared jihad, the holy war, they called it. And they started moving. There were no boundaries. So whether they were moving all the way from Senegal or Gambia on the west side, all the way to Lake Chad on the east side of West Africa. If you know the geographical map, you look at it. But Lake Chad is in the northeast of Nigeria, northwest of Cameroon, and western part of Chad. So you can find it easily. And when they started, when slave trade was banned, when it ended, then the Fulani started rearing animals. Of course, they were animal rearers before. And then now they could not do kidnapping. They could not even fight to continue doing so. So they started rearing animals. That a product that you move around. In other words, nomadism is necessary for a good cattle rearing business. So they moved all everywhere. But they were confronted. If you guys read the book, The History of Nigeria, there was a lady, Amina, Queen Amina of Zaria. Zaria was one of the states, of the Hausa states. And there were wars in that northern side of current Nigeria and other places. And so, but when eventually the Fulanis were able to defeat, or rather, well, not really defeat or conquer, but they were driven out from their places. The Fulanis occupied all those areas, Kanu, especially Kanu, Sokoto, northwestern side of Nigeria, Zaria, and the rest of them. We found out that Ottoman Danfodio, who was their head and their greatest fighter at the time, was well, some people said he was actually a wanted man in the Middle East at the time. So he settled in Sokoto, and that's where he had all his children and all his wives and everything. So these are stateless people. Fulanis are stateless people. So when they come, and in fact, I think a senator in Nigeria, as of this dispensation, not good 5 years ago, was prescribing that, or rather, proposing that Nigeria should not disturb the Fulanis from going from state to state, that the land is owned by the federal government. And therefore, since Fulanis are Nigerians now, that are fellow Nigerians, they should be allowed to go anywhere, and the constitution backs it up. What a crock. But anyway, that's not the case, because people own their lands, people own their properties, and it's not general property. But the Fulanis are killing people who refuse to give their land up for their use. That is the Fulani lifestyle. They don't believe in peace. Once you refuse their way of life to be imposed on you, automatically you become an enemy, and the next thing they want to eliminate you. Today, they believe that the problem in Nigeria by the Boko Haram, they say, means Western education is a sin. Now, many Nigerians have been trained in Western education, which has its merits. Of course, it has some shortcomings here and there, but to substitute it with Arabic education, which is what the Fulanis are pushing for, is nowhere, because as of today, we know that Western education is quite enterprising in a place like Nigeria. So the Fulanis have gone from the time Nigeria was nowhere to during the period of colonialism, and then from colonialism in the pre-40s and up to about the 50s, when colonial independence consciousness came to Nigeria, leaders of Nigeria, up to 1959, when Nigeria had elections to elect their leaders, and they did, so that in 1960, Nigeria was set free. But we know that before that time, the leader of the North, the Sardauna of Sokoto, Ahmadu Bello, who was the premier of northern Nigeria at the time, had announced that their aim is to take over Nigeria and to make sure they dump the Quran in the Atlantic Ocean. Meaning, because if you know the geography of Nigeria, you know that Sokoto is in the northwest of Nigeria, and the oceans, the Atlantic Ocean is in the south of Nigeria. So that means they will use the Quran to conquer the entire Nigeria. And that's what they're doing now, because evidence have shown that those who are supporting Boko Haram or the ISWAP or the ISIS in Nigeria are mainly Fulani people. And that's their tool, their weapon for conquering Nigeria and taking over political power.
Okay, now let me ask you, since their leader, Ahmadu Bello, said that they will continue to fight until they dip the Quran, into the River Niger, which means they want to conquer the whole Nigeria. I want to ask you, since Britain is the creator of Nigeria, is the owner of Nigeria, that created Nigeria by amalgamating the Southern Protectorate and Northern Protectorate, is Britain helping them to achieve this conquest? Because I think that they are helping them, because they are the one because the Fulanis are only 13 million in Nigeria, in the Nigerian population today. They're only 13 million out of 200 million people. The Fulanis are only 13 million. If we are thinking at Incolomahadum that Britain is actually helping them, because Britain rig the census, the election that brought in after independence, supplies them with military, make sure they dominate the military, of which they are fighting with, make sure they give them advice. In your opinion, do you agree with us that Britain is helping them? And if it is yes, how, in your opinion, how is Britain how is British assistance help them in achieving this their conquest, this their domination?
Well, your question is loaded. It's a maybe multiple barrels. I don't know. But anyway, let's see how we can maneuver the landmine, because it's maneuvering with truth. Britain colonized Nigeria. United Kingdom colonized Nigeria, and knows the politics of Nigeria from way back in the 18th century down to current day. They have tested all the different ethnic groups in Nigeria: Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, Fulani. They named them individually and collectively. So they are like fathers to Nigeria. They know everybody. They know those they can meet and give power, those they can give money, those they can give, make their culture be this and that, and everybody thinks it's. But the records are there to say who came first, who came second, how everybody came, like we just enunciated above. There is no doubt that colonial masters have an agenda. And the agenda is to dominate, to first of all colonize, dominate, maneuver, and suppress and oppress during the days of colonization. That's why they killed a lot of people, and some were put in prison, some died in prison. Anybody who wanted to go against the colonial masters, that is Britain, was dealt with harshly. In fact, some people have argued that the only reason Azikiwe took the position of ceremonial president is that he was going to be sidelined if he didn't accept a president that had no power. So he accepted to be Governor General in 1960 and later became president in 1963. And people like Awolowo, who were kicking against anything against free and total freedom, who was playing it to be the prime minister, lost out completely. And this, they say, is the plan of the Fulani, so that they can institute their man, not just with position, but with power. That is why Abubakar Tafawa Balewa became the prime minister. Actually designed for Ahmadu Bello, who was the prime minister of Northern Nigeria and the head of Northern People's Congress. Abubakar Tafawa Balewa was only the secretary, party secretary. But it was Ahmadu Bello who decided what was to happen, because his party won, but he didn't want to leave the north. So he stayed, he's a Fulani, he stayed in the north to quote unquote take care of home. And then sent Ahmadu Bello over there, because he knows before Ahmadu Bello does anything, they're going to come back to Kaduna and decide on it. Or maybe even Sokoto.
You mean Abubakar Tafawa Balewa?
Yes, okay, yeah. Not Ahmadu Bello. I mean, Ahmadu Bello stayed in the north, stayed in Kaduna, actually stayed in Sokoto, but his official headquarters was Kaduna. But they said then that he actually lived in Sokoto. Anyway, whatever may be the case, he was the Sardauna of Sokoto. So, so like you said,
he appointed Tafawa Balewa to be the prime minister.
Yes, he did.
Who is the party, the MPC, Northern Party Congress secretary, to be the prime minister, so that Ahmadu Bello will stay in the north.
Yes.
Is that what you are saying?
That's what I said.
And that was how the Tafawa Balewa became the prime minister.
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
that's the way he became a prime minister, because the MPC won the election. He was the secretary. The leader of the party was Ahmadu Bello, and he should have gone to the Lagos, being the capital, but he refused. He rather stayed in the north, in Kaduna, his regional headquarters, and sent the party secretary to go and form the government at the headquarters and be the prime minister of the first indigenous prime minister of Nigeria.
Okay.
So having done that, they have acquired power because the election was rigged according to the record, historians. And that was the mechanism of the British colonial masters. However, that first election, having its kinks and problems, continued until other elections, bringing us to the Western election of original election of 1964, that caused problem in the western part of Nigeria, and then the federal election of 1965 that caused problem all over the nation. And these are because of rigging of election conducted by the colonial masters, United Kingdom. And as a result, they were always geared towards helping the Fulani dominated northern government to take over the federal government of Nigeria at the time. This is how the British had influenced the happenings in Nigeria up till date. We still have elections where it is obvious that the Nigerians had voted Mr. A, and the British, the colonial masters, and their group made sure, true or false, was given to their own man, whoever that is. And that has happened over time and time. That's why you saw a lot of Northerners being the head of states, and even the last election was said to have been won by an Easterner, so to say, and it wasn't given to him. So, yes, the British, United Kingdom has always been at the back of Nigerian political and existential problems. Because if the Nigerian people are left to manage themselves, I'm sure they will do better. And that is why people like Nnamdi Kanu says that if Nigeria, and I believe too, that if Nigeria fails, Biafra is automatic.
Okay. Very good. So now, how do you think? I mean, why is the Fulani able to be dominating? Well, I can also say that they have more number in the military. They control all the weapons in Nigeria. If you come to the military side, so whenever a coup is being planned, they have to be involved in that coup because they have more number in the military. And if you come to democracy, the British also help them to draw the map of the North down to almost Igbo land, including Igbos in what they call North Central, and then call them One North. According to the northern politicians, they call it One North, including the Igbos. So with that arrangement, the North now have more members in the National Assembly. So there's nothing that you bring in the National Assembly that will pass without their support. So I think all this foundation is why they are still able to be dominating, everywhere in Nigeria, including in the democratic setting, as well as in the military. What is your take on that?
Well, colonialism has gone, but neocolonialism has come. And neocolonialists are Nigerians. They are Nigerians. They are those who have aligned with the former colonialists and have taken position in Nigeria to favor their masters, the colonialists. British in particular. And so there was a man called Joseph Tucker in the middle belt of Nigeria. I think it's Jos, Plateau State. They were the ones that agitated for middle belt and states. Actually, they wanted to call it one middle belt state. There was to be a far north, then a middle belt, and then the east and west and middle west. That man, Middle Belt Congress or something like that, that was his party, Middle Belt Congress, So he's one of the people that opened up the, as they said, excuse my language, the nyash of the British and what they were actually doing in Nigeria. Okay. People like Awolowo did that, but because of being imprisoned, he was pretty much silenced. I think Azikiwe was a little bit cautious or a little bit diplomatic with his thinking about the British man, because I'm quite sure he saw these things too. How the British will use the fewer in number. I'm not even sure that the number you're quoting is correct. I think it's much less than that. During election, they have people flow in, because remember, they are stateless. They don't have boundaries. So people will flow in from Mali, from Niger, just walk over.
Senegal.
Walk over. Senegal is too far. Just Niger, Chad, from Cameroon, some highly recognized politicians in Nigeria who are said to come from Cameroon. In fact, I mentioning them, somebody said, and it wasn't denied, that King Gibe is from Niger. The other man, former vice president, is from Cameroon, and so on. In fact, even Buhari was said to come from Niger. So they feel like there's no boundary and they can cross over here and do this, cross over there and do that. But we in the South, the Yoruba, the Hausa, the Bini, the Krieg, the Efik, and the rest of them in the South, we don't have anywhere to bring in numbers from. So I'm saying that to say that the number of 13 million is even erroneous. I don't think it's correct for those who are really Nigerianly. Now, it's just this last time they did the some ID identification card, something that they brought up that number just to quote unquote prove that they have numbers there. But the next day, being nomads, they'll just go back to Chad or Niger or Cameroon or Mali. When they have wars, they go and recruit these people. The Godogodos of during the war are not Nigerians, but they fought in different places, destroyed a lot of things. And so, back to what you were saying regarding the influence of the United Kingdom, the British, the colonialists have developed a slew of neo-colonialists, those who are thinking in the sense of domination, colonialism, oppression and stuff like that. And therefore, when election comes, they are the ones that are used to cause mayhem and cause people not to vote, disenfranchisement, and all whatnot. These are people, they are not Nigerians. They come from, go to the East and some other places too. You find out Dangote trucks are always causing trouble somewhere else, in the East, Southeast in particular, sometimes in the West, but not in the North. They just run into people and kill a lot of people. And then you have the unknown gunmen that actually said to come from amongst the Fulanis or those their brothers who come from out of the country. And there is been IPOB is being accused of it. IPOB being Igbo people,
indigenous people of Biafra.
Indigenous people of Biafra, not just Igbos, but the entire former Eastern region and beyond. But anyway, so what is important is that there were people like Taka who saw the Fulani crisis of Nigeria, because it was actually Fulani crisis. As a matter of fact, someone has told me that it's not even just because the Fulani is not one group. They have several different, and they are fighting for different things. Their leadership is always fighting, and once they fight, it has its own segment. That's why you have Boko Haram, you have ISWAP, and you have ISIS, and others. And these are the things that must be removed from Nigeria for Nigeria to be one. Because if Nigeria doesn't really grow into being a formidable and acceptable country, Nigeria will fail. And I repeat, if Nigeria fails, Biafra is automatic.
That's correct. You're right. Thank you very much. And so now, can the way you see Nigeria now going, do you think that this domination of the minority Fulani people, having come from outside Nigeria into Nigeria, do you think that their domination will continue forever?
My brother, forever, I don't know. I'm not going to talk about forever, but I don't know about tomorrow. Anyway, on a serious note now, no, I don't think so. We are not taking it, and our children cannot even stand it. One of the things I want our people to do is to do introspection. To first of all, go home and do your homework. These people are beating you politically, and remember that the military pre-war wasn't predominated by the Northerners, or maybe no, by the Fulanese. Let me put it that way. Majority of the military officers were Igbos because they were trained. They went to school. Some of them went to the army with school certificate. Somebody like Ojukwu went with a master's degree. But somebody like Buhari could not even show us how he went to secondary school. Secondary school, school cert, required for officers' course then. Till that was a political jingoism of the opposition party to him. And till he served and died, we don't know whether he actually went to secondary school. Nobody could say. I think maybe one person I read somewhere said he did go, but he didn't have a school cert. So somebody like Ojukwu did not only graduate from secondary school, but also from university and had a master's degree. So our people, other people, let me not just be saying our people as if Southerners and non-far north people who are not Fulani should think about this. Don't look at it as an Igbo issue, because it's not. It's way beyond the Igbo issue. If you are there in Jos and the Fulani are walloping you, you see, when an Igbo man comes up and tells you everything he knows, and you agree and you find it and give you evidence, tomorrow you still go back to the Fulani man because you have one north. Next tomorrow he will come and burn your village. And then the government is doing nothing. Christians have up to the president of the United States have said that Nigeria is a country of concern. And that, he has already advised his military to get ready. Do we want another war? Is that what we need? So I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. What I'm going to say is that our people will be prepared also, because you don't know how salvation will come. Because Nigeria is a shame. Some people call it Nigeria is not doing well. I mean, that's putting it mildly. Can do better. And one of the things to do better is to face the truth and begin to do right. Corruption. I don't want to talk about corruption because it goes everywhere. It goes everywhere. In the days when we were working as civil servants, which was in the 70s, they said things have spoiled, things have gone bad. Considering that time and now, that was heaven. Because you couldn't give a policeman or a bribe or anything. I will ask you that you want to survive or rather succeed. It's not even surviving. There are so many other issues when you get into it, you cry for Nigeria. Thank God, with all due respect to those who oppose to his administration, President Tinubu is at least allowing some good stuff to go, to go ahead and be established. Because the fact that he considered and actually appointed an Igbo to the executive, military executive, I don't know, I think the guy is Air Force commander, air commander or something like that. He's in charge of the Air Force. But before, there was no Igbo, a major tribe like that. I don't even like to talk about the ethnic, it makes us small, kind of. But we must talk about it. Because I'm Igbo before I became a Nigerian, or anything else for that matter. But having put that aside, we look straight on the issue of Nigeria and Fulani, the dominance of the Fulani people over time, and still continuing to do so. And planning, because you see, again, somebody was saying that word to dump the Quran in the Atlantic Ocean is still going forward. If Tinubu did not go to bow in the altars of Saudi Arabia, maybe he wouldn't have been the president today. And I know that's one of the things that they kick against the Igbos, because the Igbos, 90% of Igbos are not Muslim. Probably all of them Christian, maybe 70-80%. And so if there is a genocide against Christians in Nigeria, it means that 80-90% of Igbos in Nigeria are at risk. Hello.
But should Islam, being a Muslim, be a consideration for somebody to be president or become anything of value in Nigeria, considering the fact that Nigeria is supposed to be a secular state and not an Islamic state?
You are talking as if you don't know Nigeria. Oh yeah, go and be now. Don't be a Muslim and then you expect to, But what I'm saying is, on a serious note, it shouldn't be. You are correct. Nigeria is a secular state. No religion, just like they say, don't support religion, and on the other hand, do not divide it, following the American pattern. But it's not so. If you go to Nigeria today, to any federal concern, at least let me say federal, if you're not speaking the Hausa language, or you are nowhere.
Wow.
Both openly and covertly. So you have to belong.
So does it mean
belong?
Is Hausa language now the nationally accepted language in Nigeria? Is that what you are saying? Or English, since they cannot come up with anything that is neutral? Sometimes they say they will come up with this one they call Wazobia. So Wazobia is no longer being developed. So it's now, if you cannot speak Hausa, you cannot get it. Is that the level where we have found ourselves?
Well, yeah, let's not go there, because if you go into there, you open up a canker war. Okay, so let's just leave that one for now. But let me tell you that a man in the caliber of former Lieutenant General Theophilus Danjuma, at a point in time, looking at the truth of the matter, he's a Christian, but he's among the Muslim boys, all of them. Somewhere he's superior, somewhere he's junior. But do you know that some time ago, because of Boko Haram and the Islamic fundamentalists' attack on his state of Taraba, he told his people to go and arm yourself. Hello? Now, but you went to the southeast and you disarmed them, told everybody to bring their arms, and you went around again. And then it was reported that the federal government of Nigeria, or some people in position of power in the army, were arming Boko Haram. I don't know. But otherwise, how are they getting their weapons? And their weapons are identical to the ones that were ordered by Nigerian army. Somebody tell me something.
Now, what is now clear is because of the fact that the Fulanis are in charge of the government, in charge of the military, because you say that pre-war, before the war, Igbo officers, which means educated military officers or security officers, were from the south mainly, but majority of the foot soldiers, other cadres in the army, are from the north, which means the north still have a larger population than the educated military or security officer from the south. Now, that being the case, but today, the Fulanese, since they're in control of the government, controls the army, controls all the military equipment in Nigeria. And it is this, and if you come to terrorism, just like we are saying now, they disarm the Southeast and other tribes, and then arm the Fulani terrorists. And that's why they're able to be rampaging across, the whole Nigeria, trying to actually cement the conquest of everybody to now bow down to be a Muslim. I think their possession of the military equipment, because even though Trump say he's coming, I'm not trying to get into that, but I'm just trying to make a point that Trump is going to come with weapons or so. So because they are in control of the weapons and the army, and then in the terrorism side, they're also equipped, armed. Isn't that the reason why they are able to be intimidating others, killing others, extending their conquest, while other indigenous population just look like sheep to be slaughtered? Why is that so?
Well, there are so many pages to that book you just wrote. First of all, you can hardly see in the Southeast, I believe, a police commissioner that is from the South. They are mainly from the North, if not all of them. That's a structure that has been designed to empower people from the North, particularly Fulanese, so that on the roads they are free to go. Once you see them, there is their man. They already know their man. If you make a complaint, you happen to be a lower officer from Urobo or from Ogoni or from Benue or somewhere. If you see them and you know they are Fulanese, you know what will happen if a matter is taken up to the sergeant, up to the commissioner. And we see it all the time. They are arrested, they are put in jail. The next day, you see them on the road. Why? Because their boss man is from their tribe. The commissioner, or probably even as low as a inspector, maybe from their tribe. So that's, I don't even know how to begin that, because that, for you to understand it, it will take 1 full year of lecture in a university. But the little time we have, the few minutes we have, let us understand from my vantage position that if you mix up the officers on the road, we're just talking about on the road, and you take a Yoruba man to Maiduguri, they take the Sokoto man to Calabar, take the Igbo man to Kano, and so on, just that way, federal character, there will be some element of arrest of the security issues, insecurity in Nigeria, because the truth will come out. The officers will not be afraid anymore of putting somebody in jail, and then their brother will send order from somewhere and say, release that man. And most of the people who were arrested as Boko Haram from the war at least during the time of Buhari, were never punished. Actually, they were rewarded. They were rewarded because they say they have been decriminalized or deterrorized or whatever, meaning they have been washed of their crime of terrorism and therefore reintegrated into the army. And these are the people who are supposed to go and fight the Boko Haram. There are a lot of them out there who fought with these people, corrupt soldiers, but they know They were not fighting the Boko Haram. They were actually killing our boys. Regular Nigerian federal troops were falling here and there, being shot by their fellow officers. This, I mean, is out there in the internet. If the guy is lying, only God knows. But I doubt it, because I've also heard other people say so. So the influence of the Fulani in Nigerian politics should be seen beyond now. And some people are looking at it, they're against the Igbos. It's not just the Igbos. I can tell you that if you're a Yoruba man and you're thinking this thing is just against the Igbo people, they fought the Biafran war and they lost. Now we're going to, like somebody was saying that the war has not ended. The war was still continuing. Continuing how? You make it to be so. When the war ended, they said it's no victor, no vanquished. Let us reconcile, reconstruct, and move on. The 3 R's. How much he was successful, only God knows. We are all there. I don't know. I'm older now, you know what I mean? Say, but then I was in high school. I remember Taylor Woodrow and the rest of them who were used to do some of the reconstruction. I remember government programs that was coming up to do a whole lot of things. You know, thank God for the mindset of the people in power in that time, especially General Gowon, who some of us still believe he didn't do enough. But you can't blame him too much, because at the time, remember, they had Murtala, who eventually had a coup against him. Murtala Mohammed, General Murtala Mohammed, was a failed soldier. If you know his history of trying to go to Biafra 3 times from the western River Niger, he failed, and he went through the north side, through Enugu, and the best Nigerian division, 2nd division, was totally destroyed because of his lack of, people talk about how good he was, but which I also agree that maybe he learned. By the time he became president, he had become a different man. But as a soldier, he failed, woefully failed. In fact, he was court-martialed, for those who know the story. He is the one that was, on top of the issue of massacre, Asaba massacre. For those who don't know, Asaba is a town in Edo, was Delta, is the headquarters of Delta, and that town during the war in 1960, was it 67 or 67, I believe. The young men were brought out to celebrate or rather to welcome the Nigerian army coming into town, and they were massacred. There were a lot of them. Maybe I don't know whether it's 500 or 5,000. I don't have the figures, but that is the Murtala Mohammed, and of course he got his own destiny, because he was also assassinated by his own, So the influence of the Fulani in Nigeria, if you go economically, if you go look at Dangote, what's that Igbo man's name? I forgot now, who was also in that industry, cement industry, and just Ibeto, yes, Ibeto was far better than Dangote, but Dangote was shored up to today that he has to build that refinery. How many Igbo guys can build that thing in Onitsha, in Asaba, in Ibadan, in Kaduna, anywhere? Many Igbo guys, billionaires who can do even better, but they are just hiding because they don't know Nigeria yet. I continue to say Nigeria better straighten up. I'm not the only. The president of America, of the United States of America, has said it, that Christians, the genocide against Christians cannot be let to stand. Thank God for that, if nothing else. And some people are saying because Nigeria is beginning to get better economically, and that is what. No, even if that maybe has its own merit somewhere, as of today, I am 100% in support of stopping anything that will cause or continue to cause genocide of Christians. I have suffered the genocide of Igbos in northern Nigeria. Now it's genocide of Christians. When will this rubbish end?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kenny Inugo, the public analyst specializing in media psychology and public policy for joining us today. Our listeners are enjoying your enormous experience and insights into the origin, conquest, and domination of the Fulanis in Nigeria. We are trying to round up and bring this program, this important lecture, to an end today. I want you to tell our listeners your final takeaway, what the world should know about the origin, conquest, and continuous domination of the Fulanis in Nigeria before we call it a day. Over to you, sir.
Like I said, a 1 full year lecture, academic lecture in a university will not even scrape the surface of what we're talking about because it's so deep. But we manage with the little time we have, and people can go and do research, or they can contact this podcast via the host, and we may even decide to do a bunch of eye-opening lectures, live lectures, seminars, conferences, so that the truth will come out. Just recently, the former president of Nigeria, Babangida, said that the war was not started by the Igbos. A very powerful phrase in the history and sociopsychology of Nigerian happenings. People have said the Igbos started the war. The Igbos did not start the war. As a matter of fact, an Igbo stopped the coup. The war did not start in 1966, or rather, the war started Operation after the Western election. That the entire West
is breaking. Can you come closer to your microphone? It's breaking.
Okay. Can you get me now?
I can hear you better.
Are you hearing me better?
Yes. Start afresh from where you started, so that listener can catch you.
Let me say again that former General Baramusi Ibrahim Babangida has said it clearly and published in his book for record that the war did not start with Igbos fighting Nigeria. It wasn't an Igbo coup in 1966. It was a coup by Kaduna boys who were friends and they were more Nigerian than their states. There was some from the west, some from the north, but there are friends in Kaduna who looked at Nigeria and said, no, where Nigeria is going is not right. And we are military, we have a responsibility to turn the ship of state back to the right way. That's what caused the war. I mean, what caused the coup. The coup stands on its own. The war came almost a year later, and when the war came, it was a different thing. Like I said, in 1965, when federal government was no more, because somebody like some of them said Nigeria is nothing but a geographical expression. Another one said there's nothing like Nigeria. Then the other one said Nigeria was ungovernable. That was Azikiwe. When he said Nigeria was ungovernable at the end of 1965, the boys heard it. And when the other one said that Nigeria is nothing but a geographical expression, and the other one said there's nothing like Nigeria, these guys cried and said, no, we have to rescue Nigeria. They were not Igbos all. And even if they were Igbos, it was noble that they thought like that. It
was Awolowo who said that Nigeria is just a mere geographical expression.
Yeah, fine, that was him. Azikiwe said that Nigeria was ungovernable. And the other one, Sokoto, Madu Bello said there's nothing like Nigeria. These are the three pillars of Nigeria, and all of them said what is not accepting or not so good about Nigeria. So the boys heard it. The Kaduna boys in the khaki uniform heard it, and they said, no, let us do something. And they did it not on the account of Igboism, no. So thank God for Babangida on that one. those who want to hear the truth, this guy was there. He was in the military at the time. He was one of them, and and other coups. So by the time 1967 came, and there was this agreement with the federal government and the eastern group of provinces governor, which was Ojukwu. Now it was between Ojukwu and Gowon. There were issues, including the return of the of power, and other plans to confederation, which probably would have served us better. Everybody go to your home, run your home. If you're home, if at the end, somewhere along the line, if we agreed, we can come back and become one Nigeria again. If we did that, I personally believe that it would have worked. Because I can tell you that by now, we would have all seen that there is power in numbers and begin to want our brother in the north, brother in the south, brother in the east. Some of us in the north, we want our brother in the southeast, the southwest, and so on. But we didn't do that. We didn't do that experiment. We rather went to the experiment of war. This is where it brought us. This is where we are. And at the end of the war, some people still wanted to fight the war. Actually, we're fighting the war, still trying to kill to finish off the Igbo man. If you think about the Awolowo's 20 naira replacement of 20 millions that people put in the banks. Many Igbo people had money, a lot of money, before the war. At the end of the war, they were given pathways, and they started afresh, and they did well, and they're doing well. People are wondering, what is it they're doing? It's because my people say, after you have pursued somebody over time, you pursue him or her into a better place than where he was. Igbos have lost a lot, but they are still not the least. No tribe, no ethnic group in Nigeria will suffer what the Igbo man has suffered and still continue to be amongst the. Look at the government of Nigeria has 6 positions before you can see where an Igbo man is. Not president, not vice president, not chief justice. No, those 6 major positions, no Igbo man up to today. And they don't look at the government, they look at themselves, what they can do for them. Igbos are egalitarian, Igbos are very, very industrious. And that is not that other people are not. But we're saying that given the hand that has been dealt to the Igbo man in Nigeria, and they're still where they are today, I'm not saying that you doff your heart for them, but if you do, you're not doing too bad.
You have hit the point why I am answering Igbo Bueze. This is why I am answering Igbo Bueze, because of all the things you described so far, the Igbo man is still surviving. That's why I'm answering Igbo Bueze. I don't want to go into detail. I just want to tell you, you just hit the points as to where my name came from.
You're gonna have to do a big party to introduce yourself. I've never called you Igbo Bueze until you bribe me. Oh, don't bribe me, but anyway, that's by the way. So, like I'm saying, I find it a little difficult to talk about the Igbo people because I don't want it to look like because I'm Igbo, I'm carrying the Igbo people up there and all that. Because we are very proud, we are very loud. And I ask myself, why can't we be like everybody else? No, we cannot. We think there are things Yoruba people do that may be good or bad that makes them Yoruba. There are things other people do that make them Hausa. Like I'm telling you, Fulani people are stateless. If you find them in Port Harcourt, the same manner of living in the bush. They don't live in houses. If you give them a house, tomorrow, if you come there, the house will be another thing altogether. They may be in fact, the schools that were built by former President Jonathan in the north is now used to house cows and cattle and sheep and what have you. They were built for free. In the southeast, we pay communally to build schools, and we utilize them. But this was done. These schools in the north were done by the federal government under Jonathan, for education to come, because education is a light. Education is a light. So he wanted to bring light to the people. They snuffed it out and put cattle there. Are you going to start with one thing or the other or the other? Look at, according to those who know better, the Ajokuta steel industry was designed to be built in Onitsha before the war. And then after the war, for politics, they put it, they sent it to Ajakuta. Where is it today? Yes, go and search the records. It was from the east. It was from the east that Malaysia took Canada. Today they are exporting. We don't have enough. We don't have enough palm kernel that was being that was one of the main things that we were shipping out. But today we are buying it from outside because it is used to produce a lot of other things, which we now, if we had it, if the steel industry was there, we would have been able to have steel industry. So South Korea won't see our back because we'll be building cars, armored cars. And of course we do now through Innocent and the rest of them. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. You can imagine where Nigeria, let me say Nigeria, would have been by now. But every time the Igbo man wants to do, they want to get somebody else. And look at what Danko Day is doing. Great, all right, but could have been done a whole lot better. Leave it there to compete. Let them have people standing, and then we'll see.
Let me digress a little bit about the steel industry you talked about, because I read a few days ago that President Tinubu just signed, I think, 400 million naira steel industry in Ewekoro. I think somewhere in Ogun State. He wants to establish steel industry
close to him.
Ewekoro in Ogun State.
Yes. Okay. Now look at that. Nobody is talking about the steel industry that was a part of it was already started by Dumez. I think it's Dumez.
Because we have this metallurgical institute in Onitsha also.
It was part of it. They just took a little bit of, Dumez was, doing the bridge and this and that, So don't be surprised what the way Nigeria is going, because if Nigeria chooses to be the giant of Africa that it claims to be, we take giant steps and not these baby steps that is taking. And it can be done. Just do the right thing. There's no reason why OG Power Station that was supplying the entire northern part of eastern Nigeria up to Ogoja, will not have been rehabilitated, and is actually prohibited from. Because all it needs is coal in that place. It doesn't need anything else. Before Afam Power Station came, Afam Power Station came right before the war, probably 64 or thereabout, 65. But OG Power Station had been there even in the 50s, I believe. Why wouldn't you allow that, independent? I'm not talking about government going to build them. Allow people to bring their ingenuity to play, so that we can see. There are no, then some people will say, you go to Nigerian constitution, there are no-go areas. Why would there be no-go areas? Are there people who can have a glimpse of it, and some of us will not have a glimpse of it?
The one they call concurrent list and exclusive list.
That's what I'm saying. No-go areas, exclusive. There are no beyond that. In every constitution, there's always concurrent, there's always exclusive. That's government is there. But I'm talking about no-go areas. Go and ask them. Is there? Every time the Constitutional Assembly assembles, they are always informed not to go to the no-go areas. Because one of the things I'm thinking, is that the Constitution makes it clear, no secession. Okay? I was that non-secession that Awolowo and Ojukwu were talking about, and somewhere along the line, Awolowo now says, if the East is left to go, the West will follow. Left to go is the commanding word there. Not if the East goes, West will go. No. So for people to know the truth. So when you are telling the Yoruba man to come and apologize to you that they betrayed you, they may have betrayed you in other ways, but not in this one. Okay? Not in this one. There was no promise. There was no sign signature. Aburi did not even discuss the East going or the West going. Aburi discussed and agreed on confederation, which Nigeria will still have to go to if it really wants to stand. Because
which is restructuring.
Well, restructuring has been, this is the structuring too. But what I'm trying to say is that my thinking is that if Nigeria allows people, somebody, I forgot who said it last, allow people to develop at their pace. You can take a sheep to the water, a horse to the water, you can make him drink. If you want the North to operate at the level East is operating, it may not be so. If you want the East to slow down at the level, imagine all the slowing down they have done to the Igbo people. One of the reasons you have a lot more Igbo people in the outside Nigeria, maybe why they are doing so well, is because at the end of the war, the way the government, the people in power, were glad to see Igbo people leaving the country and leaving the country to them. Now look at the result. You have more people in Eastern region, in former Eastern region, particularly in Southeastern state, outside the country, doing well and bringing booties back to the country. You know, good stuff. Building schools and so on, and training people. You know, they have never stopped. You know, their apprenticeship idea in the trading world, and it helps a lot to stabilize the family and the rest of them. Apart from other social logical concerns as a result of it, because wherever there is good, there is bad, except that the good better be better than more than the bad. Okay. Now, by the time they began to realize, I remember people who were coming here with scholarships. All of them, if you have 100 Nigerians that came to a place, say to the US, and about 50% of them will be people from the East, particularly Igbo land, and none of them will come with scholarship. People from River State or other states, they come with government scholarships. I remember very clearly. Even Bursary Award. The Igbos were not getting it. They were not getting it because I did apply and I know what I was told. And I went to Nigeria for the purpose and I know what I was told. So I have to tell. And at the end of the war, because I worked and in Nigeria before I came here, I didn't just come here, green leaf. I remember when we paid 2 naira out of our what, 4, I was paid 49.57, something like that. And we were paying 2 naira back to the federal government on account of the war. I paid it. I have the record. I'm not talking about the war, the Nigerian Biafran, the Biafran war. I had a part in it. I was a kid. All right. But
next time you will share your experience on the Nigerian Biafran war.
That's $1 million. That's $1 million. You're going to pay $1 million to hear that from me.
I'm gonna hear from my participant, somebody who explained the war. We're gonna have a special lecture for you.
I have a book
give us your insight on that one.
I have a book on it.
Mr. Ken Inugo, at this point, Mr. Ken Inugo specializing in public analyst, specializing in media psychology and public policy. We're going to be bringing the lecture to an end today. We want to thank you very much for all your wide experience, your insights, your knowledge. For our listeners, we thank you very much for bringing your time today. And next Tuesday, we shall discuss your experience in the Nigerian Biafran War.
I'm not promising because that's $1 million.
Oh, okay. We're going to talk about it. So can you say 1 or 2 words to our listener before we call it we bring this program to an end?
Well, I will only say that you are doing a good job, and our listeners should continue to listen and dissect and let others know, so that we are giving another version of what you may have heard out there, or we're giving you the version that is coming from this university, Mahadum and Kolomahadum. And it will enrich your life if you just sit down, listen to it, tell your friends, gather together, get a bottle of beer or something, whatever you drink, and have a good time listening to us and maybe calling in. Someday we are going to have call-in shows where you will call in and ask us questions about whatever. If we have the answer, I'm sure we'll have the answer. If we don't, we'll find out and we'll let you know. Have a wonderful week and continue to continue. Never give up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kenny Inugo, our public analyst specializing in media psychology and public policy. Thank you for appearing with us today and hope to see you next week. Thank you very much and have a good day. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, dear. Thank you. Yes, today we have enjoyed the contributions of our public analyst, Ken Inugo, who specializes in media psychology and public policy. He has helped us to dissect the Fulanis in Nigeria, origin, conquest, and domination. And he'll be joining us next Tuesday again for another important lecture. We at Nkoloma, we are advising you again to please join us. Join us, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and TikTok. Like our lectures, comment and share, and go back to our previous lectures, and you will see that all the lectures we have prepared and presented for you is for your benefit, for the benefit of the Igbo man, the Biafran, and Africa in general, because knowledge is power. And with this, we shall be bringing today's lecture to an end. Thank you very much for joining us today and have a beautiful day. Thank you. Bye-bye.